We are back with DJ Chicken Nugget in the fucking house! Yeah! Okay. Inside voices now. What is up, everybody? Uncle 40 here. We're here to talk about the after effects on my locals of Dark Saviors being legal week 1. Fuck yeah! Okay. So, our locals had 23 people. This is more of like a condensed down metagame. Trickstars won the event. We had Mech Knight Invoke getting second, and Altergeist finished third. Now, you're like, where was the Sky Striker player at? Well, Sky Striker player finished 203. That is 3 draws. Evidently, Sky Strikers, if you're playing the invoked version of the deck, is a very, very, very slow build. And you'd be surprised at just how grindy it can get into. Now, fun story of the night, evidently. Triple red reboot resolving off of a red reboot, off of a red reboot, off of a red reboot is fantastic. All of the skill in the world to resolve triple red reboot. Now keep in mind, one player activated 2, another player activated 1. I didn't actually think a scenario of triple red reboot would ever come up in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh, but I guess this must be what it's like to chew 5 gum. I'm not really quite sure of that feeling myself, as I am a lonely old boy. Man, all these lonely jokes aside, though, but triple fucking red reboot in one game, though. Shout out to our residential Spiral player, Connor Rarick. Told me to wish him good luck, thinking that the blessing of thine Pope Imcold Jameson the 40th would be allowed to grant him such blessing, but you were playing Spiral, so you deserve to lose. The deck is Goki. And I've said this 70 times over, I'm going to continue to say this. Spiral is just Goki, but it bricks a lot more. I think it's the best way to go about looking at and analyzing that. We had a Goki player get 4th place today at Locals, finished 4-1, which is actually fantastic. I hate Goki as a deck, and I can't wait to play Sky Striker against it. Your Sky Striker matchup, so I've been dicking around with the friends list he sent me. If he wins his national championship, we'll have that list up on the channel, but he sent it to me. I've been messing around with ratios, self-drawing it, tested it against a friend of mine who's playing Goki. After about 16 or 17 games, I can tell you that the matchups are about 45-55. You have to open up an exceedingly well amount of hand traps. Sphere mode comes to mind as a way to break the Goki board. Goblin is the biggest asshole I have ever seen in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, y'all thought non-targeting card effects, or effects that cannot target or destroy, whatever the fuck Goblin does with a deck. That little asshole is ridiculous. And you don't really understand it until you're playing against Goki. Your opponent rolls out a Goblin and a Phoenix. You're like, alright, it's Cerberus. I don't know. One of them prevents being destroyed by battle. And you just look at Goblin and Phoenix and you're just like, you motherfuckers. Like, why are you here? Like, this is so unfair. Also, shout out to Trickstars. You are still, and will always be, one of the most degenerate decks in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Our residential Trickstar player, winning locals, showing us that triple reincarnation is in fact still a fantastic thing in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And red reboot, wiretaps, shit like that really make the world go round in terms of being one of those guys. And I always love using the term that guy, because that's what you are if you're playing Trickstar. You're that guy. But you know what? If it's still legal, it's still fine. You know, we have a couple of Trickstar players at Locals. We do have a very large amount of Altergeist players, though, and it very much intrigues me by how many of them just kind of showed up. Multi-Faker Siliquitos. God, the Altergeist mirror is about as good as watching the Sky Striker mirror. Sky Striker mirror is like gouging out your own eyes and just being like Shishuli, just giving all of his power to everybody in Naruto. But evidently, that's just kind of how that works. Who knew? Localized metagames are, they're a little bit more confined and constricted to the area. We know this. Local reports are very important because it helps you gauge interest. Now, if I'm going to a local tournament per se, and I know my metagame is going to be way more Altergeist heavy, you know, as opposed to a YCS list or something like that, I'm going to side heavier for that matchup as opposed to normally siding for a YCS level event where I might be facing, you know, fewer of these builds. And it's still very important to understand your localized metagame as opposed to a bigger event, because yeah, you can still play a meta deck and still succeed at that localized level, but you know, your locals could have 6-7 true Draco players and you might have a really good matchup against it, but you should still probably give some sort of dedication to that deck, because, you know, bada bing, bada boom, if they still floodgate you, well, you're still gonna have a really bad time. It's, I think a lot more people don't like to give credit to these particular things. Like, oh, they're just abnormalities. Well, abnormalities still cause ripples in the sands of time, and it's still something worth taking note of. You know, you gotta pay attention. So, there's that little thing. Know your local metagame, know what's going on, and if not, you know, you're gonna have a bad time. Just kind of how it works. You know, Yu-Gi-Oh is very region-centric, and it's really weird to say that, because we've seen this with a lot of, like, European countries and stuff with their nationals. A lot of the cool builds that will come out of those particular events are mainly because other players don't have all the cards to play all of these decks. They don't want to dedicate the money to them, and I don't really blame them for that, which is why, you know, coming out of something like Peru being won by ABC, you know, it's all about strategy, strategy, strategy. And I think it's really cool getting the chance to see these particular things coming out of the woodwork. You know, is it innovation? Yeah, absolutely. You know, call it what it is. You know, Yu-Gi-Oh does evolve, especially with the times. You know, but it's all, a lot of it's got to do with region-based connotations, pretty much depending on the card pools that these areas have available to them. You know, if you go to an event and X event only has, you know, X stuff, you know, the example list will be Sky Strikers this weekend. How many people are going to have the deck going to your locals? Well, not as many people are going to have the deck next week for the regionals. I also think that's very important to keep in mind as well. You know, Sky Striker numbers this weekend might not be reflective as the whole, as everybody's still waiting on their card pools and stuff to come in. So there is that. Don't underestimate the amount of people that are going to have something either. You know, one regional location to another is going to be different. So, but for a local tournament report though, Triple Red Reboot resolving. That's fucking hilarious. Robbie, what did you finish? Well, I slept instead of going. I just sitting here analyzing the event from the standpoint in which my friend that got first and third were filling me in on their matchups. A lot of trick stars. Invoke Mech Knight getting second though. That one shocked me very, very highly. I think a lot of people like to underestimate Mech Knight Invoked as a deck. It still does what it does. It's still just column control the deck. But so many people are just like, nah, I'm not gonna fuck around with this. Like, could you imagine a Sky Striker Mech Knight Invoked deck? Like, it's not gonna work, but could you imagine it? I also know a lot of people like messing around with Invoked Brandish or Invoked Sky Striker. Let's be real here for a sec here. I don't think that that's going to be a very good idea. I don't like the Invoked engine in Sky Striker. I think it was worth a try. I also think the Toon Table engine was worth dicking around with, just because of like the cool little interactions and shit that you can come up with in the deck. Oh, absolutely. It's adorable, you know? You never know. If I get my opponent to Ash Blossom my Toon Table, I feel like I've already done my job. But putting 3 spells in the graveyard for no reason seems pretty good. Also, the Metal Foes fusion in the main deck saddens me, but I think it's the correct way to go. You know, at the end of the day, being able to fuse or use the field spell to dump off your fusion spell to get a good mill. Also, you know how many times you play Sky Strikers and you just whiff on that field spell mill? So many! So ridiculous! If I had a penny for every time I whiffed, I might be a rich man by now. Like, it's been so damn much. But there's just that. Guys, remember, make right decisions when you go into locals. Kind of look around, know your field. You know, if you're a returning player, you should have an idea of what's going on in your local metagame. Remember, DJ Chicken Nugget remembering to remind you guys that McDonald's used to want supersize their food. And you could go home with a 48 ounce of super soda for extra $1. Or you can walk across to the gas station, spend that $1.25, and get the 48 ounce. Shit's gonna be a little bit more watered down, but you're still gonna feel like a fucking fat ass at the end of the day. Alright guys, TJ Chicken McNugget saying that this is going to be the last Radio Robbie segment. Dun 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 dun. Maybe not, we'll see. Alright, peace out guys.